I had hoped to someday help to ensure they would be properly recognized. At the age of 7, somewhere in California, Michael's grandmother showed him a stock certificate for the Central Pacific Railroad that belonged to his great-great-grandfather, who was one of the men who worked on the railroad. I imagine it was at that time that it became Michael's life mission to, in his own words, push the envelope to insist the contributions of the Chinese railroad workers and other Asian Americans be properly recognized as part of U.S. history. Unbeknownst to either of our juvenile iterations, our shared interest in the Chinese railroad worker history would eventually create a brotherly bond between the two of us decades later. Our relationship, which surprising to most, lasted just shy of 3 years, serves as a testament that any amount of time spent with Michael Kwan leaves the other as a more educated, enriched, and enlightened individual. Michael was intelligent, articulate, and witty. He was my go-to person for advice and mentorship. Above all, he was empathetic, compassionate, and caring. I am immensely proud to have worked and collaborated with Michael and many other community leaders such as Doug Foxley, the chairman of the Spike 150 Foundation, and many of others who are here today, leading up to the 150th celebration of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. I learned so much from him during this time. The work was at times overwhelming, imposing, and even adversarial, just like the solid granite of the Sierra Nevada, through which 15 tunnels had to be chiseled and blasted by the Chinese railroad workers. Yet, no matter how difficult the circumstances, Michael somehow managed to calm us during the chaos. When we were angry, he made us smile. When we cried, he comforted us. When we fell, he was the first to offer a helping hand. He always shied away from the accolades so that the rest of us could stand tall and proud on the podium and in the spotlight. He always had our backs, and in the end, he said to me, "We made history together." Michael told the Associated Press back in 2019, "We've been here for more than 150 years, and we have contributed every step of the way. That's the dream. Have people stop asking us where we're from." It is safe to predict that as we listen to our speakers tonight, we will hear similar accolades and tributes. I really envy the younger Asian Americans generations, and especially those living in Utah. Not only will they have Bruce Lee, Wong Kim Park, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, Fred Korematsu, Norman Mineta, Patsy Mink, George Takei, Corky Lee, and an ever-growing list of Asian Americans as their role models. They will also have the Honorable Judge Michael Wayne Kwan. The organizers have asked me, out of respect for everyone's time, to remind tonight's speakers to try to keep their remarks to 3 to 4 minutes. Additionally, the Chinese Railroad Workers Descendants Association would like to thank the generosity of the following for generously co-hosting tonight's event. Please kindly hold your applause until I complete announcing them. The Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association, Bing Gong Tong, Chinese American Citizens Alliance National Lodge, Chinese American Heritage Foundation, Chinese Association for Science and Technology, Utah, Chinese Performing Arts, Chinese Senior United Association. Oh, those are two different. Chinese Performing Arts and the Chinese Senior United Association. The City of Taylorsville, Indochina Chinese Benevolent Association, Japanese American Citizens League, Korean American Federation, Max and Edie Chang, National JACL Credit Union, National Tongan Society, OCA Asian Pacific Islander American Advocates Utah, Salt Lake Eastern Art Club, Taiwanese Association of the Greater Salt Lake, United Chinese Americans, United Chinese Association of Utah, Utah Asian Chamber of Commerce, and the Utah Chinese Golden Spike Society. Thank you very much for your support. Our first speaker is Taylorsville Mayor Christy Overson. Mayor Overson.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to speak for a moment at this magnificent celebration of life. The Honorable Judge Michael Kwan served for 22 years as Taylorsville's Justice Court Judge since 1998. We depend on our Municipal Justice Court Judge for leadership, steadiness, and wisdom. Judge Kwan embodied these attributes. He was organized and technically savvy. He was good-humored and good-natured. He cared profoundly about our community and strived to make it better. But most importantly, he prized justice. He was intensely focused on providing equal protection under the law for all who entered his courtroom. He was compassionate and often extended a second chance to many. Above all, his model was fairness, and he shunned bigotry and racism with every essence of his being. In Taylorsville, Judge Kwan started one of the first DUI drug courts in the nation in 1998. This program received the Governor's Award for reducing drug and alcohol abuse and related crimes in 2008. As a longtime resident of Taylorsville, when Judge Kwan was not on the bench, he could be found actively involved in the community on many levels. For years, he not only attended Taylorsville Days, our yearly community summer celebration, but he would help in the food booths. With a big smile and friendly banter, he would serve food to friends and neighbors. Thank you, Judge Kwan, for making the city of Taylorsville a better place.
Next, from the Taylorsville Court, we have Judge Christopher Lau.
I usually don't get applause, I get just standing there, right? So that was nice. So just, I guess you can say I'm the one that inherited Judge Kwan's 22 years at the Taylorsville Justice Court. I'm proud to continue on with the legacy he left and hope to build upon that legacy. His spirit continues on in the court, and every once in a while I still get motions with his name on it. But how do you fit 22 years into 4 minutes? I'll try, but I've been in Judge Kwan's orbit actually for the past 28 years, and I didn't realize that until I started preparing to talk about him. I first met him when I was a justice, the Third Circuit Court clerk, and amazingly enough, I had to hand deliver things that were done in court to the city prosecutor's office while he was there. And he was one of those prosecutors who would always stop and say hi, find out what my plans were, if I was going to law school, and he showed genuine interest in me. That relationship continued when I became the drug court prosecutor in the 3rd District Court. I would go to those annual conferences and guess who was there? Judge Kwan and his entourage of defense attorneys and prosecutors, the staff that worked with them, walking around, making sure that they were learning the things to continue with his drug court program. I was always admired him for the way he was at the forefront of the drug court program, and him recognizing that drug addiction is a medical issue, and that court intervention could be used as a tool tool to help them get their lives back. And he did it really well, and he cared about them. I also ran into him at the Salt Lake Community College. I taught post there, and Judge Kwan, as you well know, he taught courses at the Salt Lake Community College in the public safety program. It was always after hours when we'd run into each other, and we'd say hi, what class are you teaching, what class are you teaching, and I'd also watch the students welcome him, and I got smiles on their face when he was talking with them. I think, well, I know that a lot of students who went through that public safety program at the college were touched by his love of the law and his interest in the welfare of others. My relationship continued with Judge Kwan when I became a defense attorney, and I became one of the public defenders in his courtroom. The Stoll, Craig & Bound was the law firm at the time. It's now Stoll, Craig. I couldn't be a partner and be a judge at the same time. It just didn't work. But we use Judge Kwan in the sense of to teach our attorneys how to be attorneys. He would mentor the young attorneys. He wasn't mean to them, but he would make sure that they were honing their thinking skills and their trial skills. It was kind of fun to watch from the back when you saw Judge Kwan focus in on the attorney and start asking him a lot of questions, him or her a lot of questions. And he would do it to any quote-unquote new attorney. Even after 13 years of being a prosecutor, I got the experience, the Judge Kwan experience. It was his special way of welcoming you to his court. He was also technologically sound. He was at the forefront of it. I remember a couple of judges would come to me and say, how do you work this WebEx when the pandemic hit? And it was, I would tell them every time, go talk to Judge Kwan. He knows how to work it. And when I became the judge in Taylorsville, there wasn't a lot I had to do technologically. It was already up to par. And I think he just loved that part of being a judge as well. Another way he helped the community was he helped organize immigration clinics. Our law firm was an immigration law firm as well. And he'd have us come and do pro bono work to help those with immigration issues. He really showed a love for those who needed this type of help and needed that access to the law that wasn't afforded to them. He tried and helped every person who came into his court by teaching them life lessons while going over the sentence. I was always amazed again at his compassion when he dealt with others. We called them Dr. Phil moments, when he would sit and talk to them for about 20 or 30 minutes. And if you're an attorney, you know you want to get in and out, because if your client talks too much, they can get themselves in trouble. But he would talk to them for about 30 minutes and get to the core of their issues to help them try and turn their life around. He cared about everyone. In trying to sum up Judge Kwan's life, I came across this quote from Corrie ten Boom. She was somebody who helped the Jews during the fleeing Nazi persecution. She stated, "The measure of a life, after all, is not its duration, but its donation." While Judge Kwan's life did not last as long as everyone wanted, the magnitude of his donation of time, love, and energy as a judge, educator, lawyer, community activist, and family man will last as an everlasting monument to his life. Thank you, Judge Kwan, for everything. Your legacy will live on in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Baum. From the Salt Lake Prosecutor's Office, we have Henry Cisneros.
Just a quick update. I haven't worked there for 25 years. But I hope to share an early time in Judge Kwan's life before he was Judge Kwan. When he was Mike Kwan, young attorney, I think it was his first legal job. And may I begin first by thanking all of you for this honor. I'm so happy for my friend Michael Kwan that you all have gathered here for him. I thank Jennifer and Elizabeth for sharing your dad and your husband with us all these years. And he's just had an incredible impact on so many people. Let me talk to you a little bit about a very simple beginning, which was the beginning of Mike's career. We were at the city prosecutor's office. You can imagine a mid-century building, government building, very functional, utilitarian, ugly. the type of building, they don't exist anymore because they've come down. Nothing like what we have here today in Taylorsville and most cities. It was a very humble beginning. And in that beautiful building, Mike shared offices with a group of young prosecutors. And I think most of you are familiar with the standard law office. It has a certain size, a certain spaciousness. Within our offices, there were 3 or 4 lawyers sharing space. Desks facing each other, desks sideways, piled knee-high with files. We had court calendars of 50 or 70 cases per calendar. And that was Mike's beginning. It was in the basement. There was no natural light, no windows. And Mike, if I might say, brought the light. He was all of these things that Judge Bound described. He was intense. And let's picture Mike from back then. And to me, he's always looked the same. He's a very distinguished, handsome man. But picture him with dark hair, black hair. And he wore, from that time, this is almost 30 years ago, we all wore it. Padded shoulders. Our suits didn't fit. Men and women wore the same outfit. And that was young Michael Kwan. That space and that time needed light, and Mike brought the light. I think some of these anecdotes will be very familiar to almost all of you. Imagine sitting next to Mike, literally 3 or 4 feet away, and he says, "Henry, I have an idea." I'm sure some of you have faced that moment. And his idea was, let's start a legal organization, the Multicultural Legal Center. And he had the idea, but very important, what was his motivation behind his idea? And it was because he cared about people. He was empathetic towards everyone. He had a deep concern for underrepresented people. And so his idea was, we should form a legal center to have a voice in the courts for those underrepresented populations. And of course, that idea then led to the next stage, which is that Mike was an actor. He was a visionary. And what Mike did is he went and he signed up just all on his own initiative. This is not a man that was going to sit still and never sat still in his life. He formed a nonprofit organization, developed a mission statement, and began to recruit some of the best and brightest young attorneys and leaders of the community to be a part of this organization. That's Mike Kwan as a leader, charismatic, intense, a little bit demanding, as he needed to be. And then the final step, and this is where he's got you. Henry, I think I want you to be a part of this organization. And of course I was. Marlene Gonzalez is here. She was a former executive director for Multicultural Legal Center. And we were very proud of the work that we did for, I think, a crucial period of time. I think of Mike as a light, and I think he would have loved to have seen this, to have enjoyed this. He is not someone who sought the limelight, but his light is lit amongst all of you, and that is the most beautiful thing. So I thank all of you, and I thank Michael Kwan. I miss him dearly. Thank you.
We've heard a lot from his public service with our last 3 speakers, and we're going to now rotate a little bit toward his community service involvement, particularly in the Asian American community, Asian and Asian American diaspora community here in Utah. And we'd like to first hear from the board member of the Asian Association of Utah, Shilpi Blanchard.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor, truly. Late Judge Michael Kwan, a friend, a mentor, and above all, a servant leader in our community. A compassionate and good-natured soul. His untimely death is a great loss to the community indeed. As we gather here today to celebrate him, his life, and his legacy, I'm reminded that retrospection is what creates fond memories. I have seen him participate, serve, teach, and engage on various platforms. Civic engagement and justice were the two key pillars of his personality that I got to experience and share with him. As I also take this stand today representing the Asian Association of Utah, the Refugee and Immigrant Center, his leadership at the helm of the agency in 2016, guiding us all through a period of change and growth, cannot go unnoticed. We are ever so grateful for his leadership and for his compassion and stewardship with the agency. Its impact is unparalleled and lives with and amongst us at the agency in many forms. His legacy is almost 150 years old, as we have heard, in the state as a descendant of the Transcontinental Railroad worker in Utah. Michael had his own unique, personal ribbon of steel that joined many communities, missions, and civil rights activists. We all have heard and will hear of several agencies where he served, many organizations and groups he counseled through. As we go through this evening together, the most remarkable thing to notice is his level of enthusiasm, commitment, and tenacity. He always told me personally to speak my mind, which many of you know I do, stand for my convictions, and do the right thing. Michael, I know and believe that you can see and hear me and all of us right now. We love you and cherish your memories. Truth be told, Thucydides, the Greek historian, has summed it up the best. What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. So let's focus on that weave and that thread that connects us all with Michael. Thank you, and Om Shanti.
In particular, Michael was very concerned about our youth. He really wanted to support them and make sure that they grew in any way possible. So he always tried to support them. So during the 150th celebration, I went to Oak Ridge, my children went to Oak Ridge Elementary, and through the Spike 150 Foundation and through Beverly Taylor Sorensen's Arts for Kids, we gave a lesson on the Chinese world workers, and they developed a graphic novel. Michael was so impressed by this graphic novel. Not only did he come to the assembly where he watched the kids present the novel along with an opera, a rendition from Golden Mountain, as well as a play that the students wrote, but he made sure that he would pay to get these graphic novels published. So each student could have their own copy. He sold the copies during the conference, during the 150 celebrations, so people around the country would see this. He always wanted to make sure that children were involved and the youth. And so it's fitting that our next speaker is a representative of the youth, and it's Kyle.
Hello everyone, I'm so happy to have been given the opportunity and so honored to have the opportunity to come here today and share my experiences with Michael Kwan. My name is Kyle Linan and I'm currently a sophomore at Skyline High School. I remember when I first met Michael. Back then, the monthly meetings of CRWA were held at my house. So I remember every month I would be helping my mom set up, putting out some water bottles, laying out some snacks. But what I remember most is that when Michael came to my house, coming straight from work, he would always call, "Hey Kyle," and I'd come down there and I'd help him bring some stuff in, set up his computer, and just small things. And during this time, he would make small talk with me. He'd ask me how my day was, how it was going, tell me about upcoming events, and encourage me to attend them. And it was through these talks that he became my mentor, and more importantly, like an uncle to me. And what Uncle Mike taught me as my mentor and what he showed me was the importance of community service as well as doing whatever you can for the community around you. In fact, one of my favorite stories to think about is back when I was just 9 years old, I would help them do little things. I would, bring things in and out, help set up the tables, find people for other people. And yet, despite these little things that was just expected of me, Michael recognized that. And he even put me on the CRWDA website. I still remember my mom told him, "You don't need to do that. He's just a kid." Because as in the Asian community, it's kind of expected of us. As children, it's our job to do those small things and to help out where we can. But Michael still recognized me and said, even though he's just a kid, he still does more than some adults do. And that really spoke to me. And as a result, I found myself wanting to do more, and I ended up doing more. Just 3 years later, when I was 12, at the 150th anniversary for the completion of the Chinese Railroad, I found myself so much more involved. I attended the conference, since Michael was kind enough to give me a pass, and listening to the speakers and doing what I could was so much fun. He taught me so much, and he influenced me so much to become the person I am today. Back before I met him, when I was in middle school, I didn't really have an interest in school. I didn't really like those kinds of things. But once I got to high school, my experience with him really came to a head. And I found myself attending different clubs, business club, mock trial, and learning how to speak, all because I wanted to be like Michael. I wanted to be like Uncle Mike. He really created a massive impact in shaping who I am today. And one of the biggest key takeaways I found from him was, no matter how busy you are, no matter what you're doing, always find some time to better your community. Michael was a judge. He was so busy. He had so much on his plate. But despite that, he still did what he could for his community. He still did what he could to make sure that our ancestors who worked hard and tirelessly on the railroad got recognized for what they did. And learning from that, even now, if I'm busy with school or if I have work to come up with, I try my best to also do what I can for my community. And I hope everyone else will try to do that as well. Lastly, his biggest thing he taught me was to continue encouraging those around us to do what they can for the community. He encouraged the youth to do what they could for the community. He encouraged me to do what I could for the community. And in recognition of that, under the teachings of my calligraphy teacher, Xu Lao Si, I wrote out this calligraphy work to really recognize everything he meant to me. So it says, 施恩施海, 后代楷模. And what that means is the loving, the caring of a teacher, Uncle Michael, is as vast as the sea. And it also says that Michael, 后代楷模, Uncle Mike, was a role model for the future generations. And I just want to present this to Jennifer Ai. So lastly, in recognition of Michael Kwan, and in hopes of filling his shoes, let's continue doing what we can for our community, and together, moving forward, encouraging each other to do what they can for our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle, for your touching speech and carry words to Michael. You are such a sweet boy. You will do amazing things in your life. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much.
I see we have another fine future Skyline graduate. But in any case, talking about protecting the youth, there's also my daughter, who was 5, going on 6 during the 150th. She would oftentimes join me for meetings in Judge Kwan's chamber. And I think he also gave her a good life lesson when he said to go inside the holding cell, and he closed the door behind her, and then she felt the scary sound of the jail door closing. I'm pretty sure she will never go back there. A few weeks ago, the iconic musical Phantom of the Opera closed on Broadway. And Michael is one of actually Michael's favorite musicals. And even so, by fate, that the first Asian American to play Christine Daae on Phantom of the Opera performed in Gold Mountain, whom we will hear from Jason Ma, the creator of Gold Mountain, shortly. Performed, which Michael and I helped co-produce. At this time, his daughter, Elizabeth, will perform Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera.
Alright, thanks Max. Okay, so yeah, I'm Elizabeth. I'm Michael's oldest child. Before I introduce the song I'm gonna play again, I just want to double check that everyone, there's a live stream going on. It didn't work on Facebook and it didn't work on YouTube, so we're streaming it on my Twitch account. So if you have any friends who are trying to get a hold of the Facebook Live, just tell them to go into the discussion of the Facebook event and the link is on there. I'm pretty sure plenty of you are watching it right now, and hello. But yeah, anyway, the song I'm gonna play is Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera. It was my dad's lullaby for me, actually. He had a lullaby for me and each of my cousins and my brother, so this was mine. Hope you guys like it.
Luckily, I have these young men here to lift this heavy podium for me. That was beautiful, Elizabeth, and I'm sure your father is looking down and he sings that to you every night. And I know that Michael has visited us because at the service back in 2020, it was described how Michael had visited Jennifer as a fly, and she was kind of brushing him away, but she knew it was Michael. And later, Karen, I believe he visited you as a butterfly, was it? As a butterfly. And later, it was actually a few weeks later at my porch. We never get hummingbirds at our house, but all of a sudden there was a hummingbird that came to our window on our patio and just sat there in front of me and just interacted with me. I would move and interact with me for a good 5 minutes. I'm sure it was Michael. I was sure he was telling us that everything is going to be okay and that he is around and will always be there to support us. Our next speaker is from the National Tongan American Society, the Executive Director, Fahinen Tavaki Pasi.
Thank you. I typically, when I speak at things like this, I typically can't help myself, but I tear up. But I told Karen I wasn't going to cry. And the only reason why I'm not going to cry, because I know Michael is not like that. So he will not appreciate it if I cry. So for Michael, I'm not going to cry, Michael. But I can't remember the first time I met Judge Michael Kwan. I feel like I've known him longer than my own children, who are like 30 plus years. But I met Michael through his sister Karen, because I worked with Karen at the University of Utah for like 10 somewhat years. But I admired Michael in so many ways. I looked up to him as a wise elder, even though I'm like 4, 5, 6 years older than he is. Michael, in his own way, was true to the Utah pioneer spirit or history, because we all know that he's the very first Chinese judge here in Utah. And in our community, he was the first judge to ever give a hoot about our community, our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community, by putting various programs into place that helped our community successfully navigate the court and legal system, and also had other projects that helped our youth kind of do good after they messed up. But he was a great judge to help our folks, our community. It also helped many of our older folks too that committed. So he was I remember having conversation with one of our folks in the community saying, "Oh, I've got to go see Judge Kwan," and he said, and he was like kind of nervous. And I'm like, you know what? Judge Kwan is very fair. So whatever you deserve, you're going to get it, nothing more. So I was like, oh, okay. But I love that he was a co-founder of the OCA, the Utah chapter, because through it, he was also able to advocate for our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander community, especially during difficult times. He loved our Pacific Islander community, and we loved him for standing up in behalf of our community, supporting us and uplifting our Pacific Islanders community voices. What I will always remember about Michael is his kind, though straightforward personality. I loved his humor and was always in such good spirit and fun to be around most of the time. And most of all, I will always remember his gentle, kind, and beautiful smiling face, though he could be a lion at times behind that kind, smiling face. But I like to end my little talk here, memory of Michael, with a few quotes that remind me of him. First is, humans, not places, make memories. Second is, nothing is ever really lost to us as long as we remember it. So through Michael, many were not here with us. Michael's influence is broad and wide, and he will always be remembered for his positive influence in our community. I'd like to conclude with extending our love and best wishes to Michael's family, Karen and his family. Thank you.
truly cared about our community. And when the pandemic hit, I remember one of the things that he, along with Margaret Yee, they put together a food drive. And so at the Chinatown supermarket, I was there trying to get together, and all these, so many people in this audience were there, rolling up their sleeves with their mask on, getting food, piles and tons of rice and other things for those who really couldn't afford it when so many people were hit so hard. And that's really what his legacy is, not the food drive per se, but his actions. Always he was called to action. And as Fahina mentioned, he is the co-founder of the OCA, Asian Pacific Islander American Advocates, Asian American Organization, and the Advocates Director of Civil Engagement, Verona Sonato Mauna, sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly, will be our next speaker. Thank you.
Judge Kwan was everyone's favorite Asian uncle. He told the best dad jokes. He gave us side eye when we didn't follow Robert's rules, or if we went too far off track in a meeting. He didn't like that we called him Judge. He asked me once, "Why do all the Polynesians call me Judge and not Michael?" He felt that Judge was too formal for people that he loved and considered friends and family. I told him that we called him Judge because that was our small way of honoring him and showing respect. He gave me his famous side eye, chuckled, and said, "Okay." Judge Kwan was one of the 5 founding members of OCA Asian Pacific Advocates Utah back in 1998. He also served as OCA National President at one time. Since then, regardless of official title, he continued his involvement providing his mentorship, leadership, and skills to ensure the success of our organization and members. When OCA National transitioned into a Pan-Asian and Pacific organization, he made sure OCA Utah followed suit. His relationship building was key to an equitable representation of both Asians and Pacific Islanders. OCA Utah continues to serve as an inspiration to what Asian and Pacific Islander community building could look like. Because of Judge, OCA Utah is one of the truest representations of Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community building. The Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community loved him. He served as a member, advisor, and mentor to many NHPI initiatives and boards, such as the Utah Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Coalition, the National Tongan American Society, and Mana Academy Charter School. He held one of the highest positions in the state, but it was not uncommon to find him working side by side with community at a grassroots level. That was who he was. He was a servant leader in every sense of the word. Judge Kwan was a beacon of light to OCA and within our community. He was an influential leader and a fearless community advocate. He fought for equality and equity and always practiced inclusion. He was a teacher, a mentor, a friend, and so much more. He taught us that true leadership started from your heart. The impact of the love and service that he so freely gave will be felt for years to come. To the Kwan family, thank you. Thank you for sharing your husband, your dad, your brother, and your uncle. We love and miss him. Thank you.
As alluded to, Michael's reach went well beyond Utah. And so Rick Ng, the president of the Chinese American Citizen Alliance Los Angeles Lodge, will be our next speaker. Rick.
Thank you, Max. Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is well. I'd first like to thank Margaret Yee for the introduction to Michael, even though I had met him previously as the national president of OCA when I was involved with, and still am involved with OCA Greater Los Angeles. But it was through Margaret that our friendship had deepened because of the work with the Golden Spike 150. I also want to give my heartfelt thanks to Mike's immediate family, Jennifer, the children Elizabeth and Richard, and grand doggy Bebo, and extended family members that are here today. As I mentioned before, I first met Mike when he served as national president for OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates in 2015. However, I got to know Mike better in the 2 years that I was involved with the planning and organizing of the Golden Spike 150 with Mike helming the festivities that took place on Friday, May 10, 2019. As Max had mentioned, the Chinese American Citizens Alliance is the oldest continuous civil rights and advocacy organization for Americans of Chinese ancestry, established in 1895. Today we are 20 chapters strong nationwide. CACA joined the Chinese Railroad Workers Descendant Association as a community partner, and I was fortunate to have landed the role as representative for the National Board of CACA in helping and planning the sesquicentennial celebration. Mike initially made visits to Los Angeles, primarily to see his family, and we managed to get together for a meal to discuss the Golden Spike as well as other topics in our community. Our spot was the famous Bob's Big Boy in Toluca Lake, that iconic landmark of the golden age of fast food diners. In fact, daughter Elizabeth reminds me that one of the first occasions at the Bob's is where Mike met his grand doggy, Bebo, and it was love at first sight. It has been almost 3 years since he suddenly left us, and I miss his friendship. I miss our talks and his wise counsel and perspectives on the issue of the day. But most of all, I miss his wicked sense of humor. His ability to laugh at the follies and foibles of everyday life and human behavior was quite a relief and a welcome. As many have spoke earlier today, Mike's legacy are many. The DUI drug court at Taylorsville, founder with his sister, State Senator Karen Kwan of OCA, Utah. And I had hoped we'd get around to establishing a CACA Greater Utah chapter. Thanks, Wilson. Following Elizabeth and Richard, his proudest work would be the commemoration of the first U.S. transcontinental railroad, which is regarded as one of the greatest engineering feats of the 19th century and instrumental in building the foundation of America's economic ascendancy. Mike's gift in this effort was his leadership that ensured 11,000 Chinese men that toiled under inhospitable conditions, suffered abuses from a hostile workforce, and received unjust and indifferent treatment from management, were justly recognized for the contributions in the building of this country and given a place where descendants could proudly boast, yes, we are a part of American history and immigrants built this nation. Perhaps the event that I connect with Mike was the 10 miles of track in one day hike in 2019. For those unfamiliar with this historic event, it was essentially an unofficial contest between the track lane crews of the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific, held during the final phases of the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. The competition was to determine who would first reach the meeting place at Promontory, Utah. As early as 1868, railroad crews set and subsequently broke each other's world records for the longest length of the track laid in a single day. The culmination in the April 28, 1869 record was set by Chinese and Irish crews of the Central Pacific, who laid 10 miles, 56 feet of track in one day. This idea was started as a commemoration for sort of the brainchild of Jack Shu, who is a retired California Department of Parks and Recreation employee. and he's a current council member of the city of Mesa near San Diego. Jack wanted to do something for his 67th birthday, and so in this great vision of his, he selected this relatively unknown chapter at the time of the railroad saga. So we were glad that Jack's vision turned into this Sunday, April 28, 2019, on Jack's birthday, a band of hardy adventurers journeyed over the windswept northeast quadrant of the Great Salt Lake, inhabited by curious calves and their equally cautious mothers. Now, Mike was not there on that day, but his fingerprints were all over the place, making the hike possible. Perseverance, tenacity, and tireless work ethic that inspired the railroad workers and also demonstrated by Mike's leadership inspired the several dozen hikers that participated in the historic trek on that long abandoned line. At the end of the day, Mike was there to greet and congratulate the hikers. When Mike passed away in July 2020, the hikers group mourned, and we started to make plans for another 10 miles of track for 2021. But the pandemic scuttled any possible reunion of the group and the joining of others. However, the good news is that plans are underway for the trek in 2024, where April 28th again falls on a Sunday, and we'll probably celebrate Jack's 71st birthday, but we'll also welcome, hopefully, the spirit of Michael, who came to greet us when we ended our trek on the inaugural journey. I close with a fitting salute to Mike from another co-organizer of the hike, Paul Lee of San Francisco. He's a retired transportation administrator, and he was unable to be here to join us today in the celebration of life, but I felt his words were probably most fitting in the parting. Thank you for offering to speak on behalf of the 10 Miles hikers. The event was a success and most memorable for the participants. It was gratifying to see hikers from Utah, Southern and Northern California. Local JACL members came out to participate as well. There was national and local media coverage. Judge Kwan was a supporter in body and spirit. Even though he was unavailable to participate in the walk, he lent his support with vehicles and refreshments for the participants at the end. It also was a notable gesture for us to honor and commemorate the indomitable spirit of the Chinese railroad workers who set the 10-mile record. It's time to recognize the work and persistence under very different circumstances. Too often, the work of unsung heroes is forgotten or ignored. Thank you for your continuing effort to educate, inform, and enlighten the general public. And Paul closes, I'm sorry I won't be able to attend the celebration of life for Judge Kwan. He is an American hero. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. As Rick mentioned, the 10-mile day was really a significant and really an unprecedented and will not be a repeated feat. And it's something that we did not learn in school, and Michael was actually one who first taught me about the 10-mile day. The pandemic robbed most of us to celebrate his life back in 2020. But for those who were able to attend the program, there's a program first here, right here at Taylorsville, and there was flowers that his sister Karen and Travis and Amelia had put together. It was a sign. The flowers made the sign of the 10-mile day. And it said very simply, you have gone the 10 miles in a day, every day. And that really is the essence of Michael Kwan. Our next speaker is from the opposite coast, from Boston, where they don't use the letter R. And he is our president of the Chinese American Citizen Alliance, the Boston Lodge, as well as the Chinese American Heritage Foundation co-founder, Wilson Lee. Wilson?
It's wicked good to be here. wicked bad to be one of the last speakers because all the previous speakers are so eloquent. All the substance already been said, especially our high school student Kyle and Andrew. So those of you that knew Michael for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, you guys know how lucky you are, and I wish I was as lucky as you. I did not have the good fortune of meeting Michael until the beginning of 2018, and my wife Esther and I gathered in Sacramento with other community leaders to share ideas to how to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. So our idea was to have a float in the Rose Parade. For those of you that don't know about the Rose Parade, it's one of the biggest parades in the world, actually. Actually, it's even bigger than the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade because the Rose Parade is televised worldwide. It celebrates New Year. They have never been a Chinese-American organization to sponsor a float in the 130 history of the Rose Parade. They have never been a Chinese-American theme in the Rose Parade. So at the presentation, we had a PowerPoint presentation, and we had a schematic of the float. Over 30, 40 people were at this conference, and everyone looked at us like, these guys are crazy. They're not gonna do it. So in order to sponsor a float in the Rose Parade, first of all, you have to be accepted by the committee, which we were. And you have to hire one of the 3 float builders. So you don't just build this in your garage and then you roll it out. The cost of a float goes anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. We didn't have a single cent. So I'm pretty sure that 95% of the folks in the room said, not gonna do it, they're not gonna raise the money. But Michael came up to us after the conference and says, wow, this is a really great idea. You know, what kind of help do you need? I said, Mike, whatever you can do to connect us with the right people, you know, we would really appreciate it. So sure enough, we did complete the float, and some of the folks here actually participated in the float decoration. And I think everyone here know our float had the most airtime for the past 20, 30 years of the Rose Parade. It was aired internationally. A friend of mine called from South Africa says, wow, the float, is that your float? I said, well, it's not my float, it's our float. So anyway, I'm not gonna go into detail on that. Karen and her lovely daughter was one of the float riders, including Major General William S. Chin, who's the first 2-star general in the U.S. Army, retired. His family, his grandfather actually was a railroad worker. So what was important about our float actually is that we just did not have railroad descendant, Chinese railroad descendant, but we invited Mormon, Irish, African American, Greek, Japanese, because we would be just as bad as the iconic picture where the Chinese were left out at the completion of the railroad, because we know better. Yes, the Chinese represented more than 90% of the workforce of Central Pacific that built the western portion of the railroad. But we want to honor all those that helped build the railroad. So in, I think it was like February of 2019, we got a call from Michael, and he goes, the Chinese Railroad Worker Descendant Association would like to recognize you and Esther for the railroad at our award ceremony. And I asked, okay, what else are you going to recognize? He goes, oh, Professor Gordon Chang from Stanford University and Corky Lee. I said, oh, please don't recognize us. He goes, why? I said, these two are like legends. I said, Esther and I are nobody. I said, honestly, we don't want the award. I said, the worst you can give us to us, to help us, actually is to give us an award, because people would think that we did the float so that we could get an award. So please, the fact that you and the organization want to honor us, that in itself is the award. I said, please, we really thank you for the thought, but we respectfully decline the award. Because I said, it's not just Esther and me, it's we have a team, all these people that donated generously, people that help with the float decorations, everybody. Even though you did not contribute a single cent to the float, to us, it represents the Chinese American community's float. So Michael called back a week later. He goes, well, our board decided we want to recognize the Chinese American Heritage Foundation. And then as I talked about it, go, okay, that's different because the Chinese American Heritage Foundation represents us. So we came to Utah on May 10th. We want to make sure that General Bill, who's our senior advisor, and Ding Bong Lee and others were up there receiving the award with us. So we're incredibly grateful. And then a few months later, Mike asked, hey, we would love to have you participate on our board. And I said, Mike, you just gave us an award like a few months ago, and you want us to participate on the board. I think people might misconstrue that as nepotism or favoritism. I said, maybe a little later, So over the course of the 2019, we were bumped into Michael. And on one occasion, we actually saw him and Ken Lee. We stayed at the same hotel in Washington, D.C. They were advocating for some issues, and we were actually working on the Chinese American World II Veteran Congressional Gold Medal. So we asked Mike, hey, can you please help us advocate for the Chinese American World II Veteran Congressional Gold Medal? Because two of the most important group accomplishments by Chinese American were first, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. Second was the 20,000 Chinese American that served in the U.S. military during World War II. That 20,000 actually represent over 20% of the Chinese population in the United States and the territory of Hawaii in 1941. So it's really important. So over the course of raising, so we're talking about our 2020 float. 2020 float was to honor the Chinese American World II veterans, but also we want to recognize and honor people of color who served during World War II. So not only did we honor the Chinese American World War II veterans, we honored the Tuskegee Airmen, the Women Air Service pilots, the Native American code talkers, the Hispanic Marine Battalion, the Japanese 442nd Battalion. So we really want to recognize people that have traditionally not been recognized or honored. And surprisingly, our 2020 float won the Extraordinary Award, which is like the second highest award in the Rose Parade, which kind of like never happens because we're like a newbie and it takes really a long time to build relationship and anyways. So Mike called us like a few months after the Rose Parade over, he goes, our foundation, we're working, would like to donate $10,000 to a foundation to support the float. So for that, we are incredibly grateful, and I want to thank everyone here tonight to honor Michael. I really wish I had known Michael longer. And yes, like what Rick Ing said, we wanted to start a CA chapter here in Salt Lake City. So God bless you all, and I hope that Michael is enjoying this event as we celebrate his life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wilson. I was really blessed when working on the 150th because Doug Foxley, the chairman of Spike 150, invited me to be on the executive board, and I worked very closely with Michael as well as Margaret Yee of the Chinese Railroad Workers Descendants Association. And one thing that really was great because they had vision, and they saw things much more than historical. And they knew that the arts, instead of just lecturing everyone and giving the academics, but they understood that the arts was a great way to reach out and create empathy and create understanding. And so we brought in David Henry Hwang's The Dance in the Railroad. We had a new symphony that was performed by the Utah Symphony that was in conjunction with by Grammy Award-winning Joe Tian, which the Spike 150 organization just helped produce as well as Chinese World Workers Descendants Association helped produce a CD that was for the last year. And Michael had actually sent me an email from a gentleman in Los Angeles. He was a playwright. Never met this person before. And he was talking about how he wrote a musical about Chinese railroad workers. And I looked at it and I said, oh, I don't think we have the budget to do something like this. And then Michael introduced me to him and I said, we don't have the budget, but we have to do this. And our next speaker is Jason Ma, who is the writer, producer, everything of Gold Mountain, a beautiful story that was produced in a concert form during the Spike 150 celebration and in a full performance through the Utah Shakespeare Festival back in 2021. Now, Michael, Jason, and I all grew up without brothers. So we kind of needed a little support group, actually. And no offense, Karen and company and my sisters. But we really, through that process of bringing Gold Mountain and the story, this beautiful story about the Chinese railroad workers from the perspective of a Chinese railroad worker, that brought us really, truly a brotherhood that will never be broken. Jason?
On January 27th, 2018, a message was sent to the Gold Mountain website from Michael W. Kwan, President, Chinese Railroad Workers Descendants Association. To whom it may concern, as you may know, the 150th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad will be commemorated on May 10th, 2019. As descendants of Chinese railroad workers who toiled on the Central Pacific Line, we hope to use this auspicious occasion to finally and fully tell their story. We are planning a number of events, including a conference, to help educate the public about the tremendous contributions of Chinese, Chinese Americans, and Native Hawaiian Asian Pacific Islanders to the building of the United States of America. We hope to construct a dialogue that will lead to the beginning of the end of our communities being viewed as perpetual foreigners. Well, this was a man who spoke my language. Unfortunately, I was unable to reply to his message immediately, having recently lost my father, and as the eldest child, handling his affairs. I didn't reply until April. And then, with many deep apologies, I was mortified, but Michael replied with the following. Dear Jason, I am sincerely sorry for your loss. Losing a parent is a tragic but nearly unavoidable loss for any child. I hope that you are heartened by the fact that your father knew of the joy you have brought to audiences through your professional work. As a parent, I know he must have been very proud of you. As an Asian father, I suspect that he may have struggled to show the depth of pride, joy, and love he found in you. He knew me. He knew my dad. He knew that when a child from an immigrant family listens, they can hear and feel in the short conversations and the silences the bedrock of love and devotion that comes from their fathers. From the very beginning, he showed me what kind of man he was: insightful, compassionate, and open-hearted. I finally met him in person in May during the 2018 CRWDA conference, where he introduced me to Max. And as the three of us worked together over the next year, Michael became Mike. And we produced 4 performances in 2 cities for the Spike 150 celebrations. And for the first time in my life, I had 2 brothers. We were a team, united by a shared goal and outlook. And we also had so much in common personally. We were all the firstborn and only son of our families. We all had brilliant, accomplished younger sisters. And of course, we shared the experience of being of 2 cultures, that of our immigrant families and that of the country of our birth. The 3 of us were united in our desire to change the conversation and perception regarding Asian Americans in American culture, as well as reclaiming and expanding our community's roles in the American historical narrative. The three of us were extremely passionate about this, and after Spike 150 was over, we continued to stay in touch, to discuss, to vent, to catch up, and text. So much texting about the world, the country, and society in general. We never stopped talking. We never stopped texting. Until we had to. Gold Mountain had its world premiere at the Utah Shakespeare Festival in 2021, and one of the first in-person productions in the country of a new musical coming out of the pandemic. Michael would have loved it. In honor of Michael, we renamed the central father character in the piece, and Michael's Chinese name, Kwan was sung every performance during the run, and will be anytime Gold Mountain is performed or read in the future. It is an honor and a privilege to have him in the piece, and I'll always be grateful to the family for making it possible. As long as I have Gold Mountain, I will have Mike. Thank you.
Our final speaker for tonight is the provost of Salt Lake Community College, where Michael had many, many ties. Mr. Provost Clifton Sanders will provide his closing remarks, and he will finish with a music interlude.
It's kind of typical for me to be the one to close out things. But I would have to say that I really regret that I didn't get to interact much with Judge Michael Wei Kwan. As a matter of fact, I think my most significant interaction with him was when I had to appear before him in court. Long time ago. However, I've known his sister Karen for at least 20 years as we've been faculty together at Salt Lake Community College. And when I became provost in 2015, I began hearing about how much Judge Kwan was a treasure to Salt Lake Community College's public safety and criminal justice program. Everyone, from faculty to administrators to students, would tell me with deep affection about the role he played in their lives as teacher, mentor, leader, and role model. Not only did Judge Kwan teach at the college, but he also led our program advisory committee. And he was a devoted advocate and role model at SLCC for over 20 years. When Judge Kwan passed, it was our honor to grant the family the request to have his motorcade pass through Salt Lake Community College for one final salute from us. As time rolled forward, particularly in the pandemic, and as the college was looking for ways to respond to the hate towards our Asian and Pacific Islanders, Utahns, and students, I asked Karen and her family for permission to honor Judge Kwan's legacy to SLCC by starting the Judge Michael Wei Kwan lecture series on justice and equity. We had the inaugural lecture last October, and the keynote speaker was Dr. Frank Wu, president of Queens College in New York, and former associate and friend of the Kwan family. President Wu gave an outstanding presentation, and we're looking forward to continuing this lecture series as a way to continue the good things that Judge Kwan did and was and continues to be for Salt Lake Community College, and to connect with our communities in affirming and healing ways for the greater good. So for me, it has truly been a distinct honor to be part of Judge Kwan's memorial, to spend time with Karen and the family, and to launch the lecture series. And so I come from a jazz improvisation tradition, and I hope that this small musical tribute done in the style of my African American heritage helps us to remember that Judge Kwan always dreamed and always helped us look beyond ourselves. And so this is, I think, one of his favorite songs.
Thank you, Provost Sanders. This concludes the formal portion of our program tonight, but before we go to an open mic session, which we have probably for about 10-15 minutes, I just wanted to again thank in particular the Chinese Railroad Workers Descendants Association and its members of board of directors. And if you're a member of the board of directors, please raise your hand or stand up to be acknowledged, and let's give them a big hand for putting this together for honor of the country. Thank you so much for all that you've done. And also, particularly for Eunice Lane, who has put together this program. So Eunice, thank you very much. I hope that you, like me, will leave tonight not more than just, we're no longer to be saddened, but comforted that he has inspired so many of us and so many generations and such a broad breadth of human beings, and that this inspiration will lead us, all of us collectively, to do more inspirational things, not just in the name of Michael, not just in the name of Chinese railroad workers, but for humanity. He is one great example, but we all can serve as a great example like Michael. So I'm going to turn it over, and we can just pass this mic around. If anyone would like to speak, we can hand you the mic. If not, we understand. I'm getting instructions from my boss. Thank you, Edie. I would like to introduce Stephanie Kay, who was his former clerk. And Stephanie, where are you? Oh, and that. Sorry. And you are taking over.
Well, can I hide behind this? Everyone managed to make it through without a tear, and I can't guarantee the same. Mike and I first met when he worked at the Salt Lake City Prosecutor's Office. Mike, Henry, Cisneros, and Kelly. We're big brothers. We're the big brothers that I never had. I like to think of us, the four amigos. We did a lot together. Lunches, dinners, movies during the day when we were supposed to be at work. But we had a great time. These men supported me through many tough times. When Mike was appointed to be the judge out here in Taylorsville, he asked me to be his clerk of court. Mike had an unwavering amount of faith in my ability to help him start what has now grown to be one of the largest justice courts in the state. Mike had a knack for making people around him feel smart and important. My career wouldn't be what it is today without him believing in me. I get to retire in a year, 10 months, and some days, but who's counting, with 30 years because of Mike. In my time with Mike, we started the, as mentioned prior, the misdemeanor drug court, domestic violence court, and a peer court. We all know what a go-getter he was and how much he loved his community. Mike also loved to give me a hard time. Like I said, the big brother I never had, he made up for in full force. I was a nursing mother, and one of his favorite things to do when we were in court was at 10 a.m. sharp. He would interrupt, didn't matter what was going on, and he would say, "I have a nursing mother. She needs to pump." So he would give me 20 minutes. Of course, humiliated every time I would walk out because I knew everybody knew what I was doing, which wasn't really what I had hoped for. He cracked himself up every day with this. Jennifer was always trying to keep him on track with his healthy eating. She would bring his lunch to me that we all know he deliberately left at home and asked me to encourage him to eat it. As much as I tried, we would end up at Apollo Burger or the pizza buffet, and the lunch was in the garbage. Sorry, Jennifer. I spent 3 years in Taylorsville. Circumstances with Taylorsville changed in that they would no longer allow a 4-day week. With a baby at home, I enjoyed having a 3-day weekend. Mike contacted the judge who had just been appointed in Holiday, and in only Mike's fashion said, "You will hire her, and you will give her 4 days a week, and she'll be the best thing that you ever had." He believed in me. For some reason, many saw me as the Jiminy Cricket or the voice of reason. I can't tell you the amount of times I was contacted by his staff, attorneys, or anyone to rein him in. One particular time stands out. I had moved to Arizona with my husband for a time. One spring morning, I'm working in the yard, minding my own business, and I receive a frantic phone call from Laura Miller and Laura Miller, who was the city prosecutor, and her husband at the time. She was crying, out of breath, and begging me, "You have got to call Mike. He has lost his ever-living mind." And I'm like, "What is going on?" So I call him. I'm like, "Mike, what is going on?" And I'm not really sure what happened, and I never did get the story that made any sense, but Mike was holding Lorenzo in contempt of court in the holding cell. Yeah, I called him. First we laughed. Then I gave him a lecture of, "This is really necessary at this time." I guess I was called because Mike would usually soften and move on. We continued to have lunch, talk, email, text. We were on the phone often. He was still the one I called when I felt too dumb to understand. What was being asked of me? My last conversation with him was the Friday prior to his death. With COVID and the WebEx hearings that were going, Judge Bound, it was Chris Bound, his father was my judge at the time, and he just left it to me. He says, "I don't care, I'm retiring next year, but I guess we have to do this now, and you gotta figure it out." So I called Mike, and in true fashion, he was busy doing his own thing, but he took the time to make me look good, like he always did. I loved him. He was my mentor, my boss, and most of all, my friend. Thank you.
Folks. I know it's late. I'll be really brief. My name's Forrest Kutch. I was Director of Indian Affairs for the state of Utah beginning 1997 until the governor got tired of looking at my face in 2011. And so during that time, I had the honor of meeting and knowing Michael. Michael Kwan was my friend. And although we didn't have a lot of contact, whenever there was a state or city event, I would see him, and he always had a kind word, okay? And when you're a person of color working for the state of Utah, and in a high office, and it can be pretty lonely sometimes, especially when you have to discuss and defend concepts like sovereignty. Sovereignty is thought of as only belonging to a city or a county or a state government, not to an Indian tribe. So when controversy would develop sometimes, because the state of Utah had a terrible time understanding how sovereignty could apply to a tribe, an Indian tribe, although it's mentioned in the Constitution. And it has the legal force of Congress, executive orders, and treaties. The state of Utah has always struggled with that. But Michael Kwan would call me. He called me at least 2 times to indicate his support and understanding of sovereignty and what the tribes are going through. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of contact, but when we did, the contact was deep, because he was a deep person, a kind, loving person, but he also was a warrior, okay? A warrior that fought with his head and his heart rather than his might, his physical prowess. And that's what makes a true peace warrior. And that's what Michael was. My best to his family and all of you. Thank you.
There is no one else. Thank you all again for coming tonight. And may Michael rest in peace. Excuse me, Elizabeth would like to speak a few words.
Hi everyone, it's me again. Can I have all of the board members come up? You know who you are. I'm looking at you guys. Anyway, I want to say a few words on behalf of the family, and because I was tasked with this, I get to say whatever I want, totally unhinged. So, I want to give a shout out to Rick for talking about my son, Bebo. That made me a very, very proud dog mom. He is in Phoenix. He's partying it up over there, you know, keeping an eye on our apartment. And they're still walking up. So look around, smile at everyone, give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Thank you so much for being here on behalf of the family. It means so much that you guys took the time to come out and be here to celebrate my dad and his life. I think I've known most of you since I was out of the womb, so you guys are like family to us, and it means so much that, you know, you took the time to come here. You guys loved him, he loved you guys. Okay, now you guys are here. Perfect, okay. My sweet mother put together some gift baskets for you guys as a thank you for all the work you put in. I'm on the board too, and they made it so easy for me and Karen to just be hands off as much as we could, so that, you know, it was a community thing, and it means so much. They were up so late. I'd be seeing text messages at like 2 in the morning, which is even later for you guys since I'm not in the same time zone. So you guys need to get some sleep tonight. But yeah, we have a bunch of gifts. Thank you again so much. I think they did a wonderful job. What do you guys think? Special shout out to you guys. You put in so much work. We really felt the love that you guys had for Michael. I know the heart, you know, the hole in our hearts will never be filled with his passing, but you guys really helped with bringing a step into providing closure for all of us, especially the family. And it's, please don't break it. Karen. But yeah, it's hard to believe that he's gone and we're even doing this. It's been a wild 3 years. But thank you for putting in the time, even though it's been so long since he's been gone. I know he loved all of you guys very much. Thanks, guys.
that it's not their time. And
So I have
they're
another.
fine with it.
And if any of the speakers are still here, please come up to the stage for a group picture. If any of the speakers are still here, please come up.
我也去上厕所就走了。
Karen has also asked members of the family to please also come to the stage, please.
I just have my email, but I coming. Sorry. Didn't wait all night.
Richard went home.
Okay, get it.